Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to react to this interesting video where people are asked about identifying as a different race. Now, what I'm finding is it's extremely offensive to trans activists when somebody brings race into it and, says they're transracial or whatever the terminology would be. And we look at the example of Rachel Dolezal, how she was treated. She was basically run off the internet, and now her only way of making money is OnlyFans. So we'll get into that. But, you have one extreme where people are demonized and basically cancelled to the point where they can't make a living anymore if they identify as a particular race. But when it comes to identifying as a different gender, a gender that's different to the one that you were born, then, that's almost considered sacred. And, I find it very interesting, the two extremes where one is celebrated and the other is completely unacceptable. And why is that? Are we not allowed to be who we want to be, our true selves? Does that not apply to everything? Only in certain categories, I guess. So let's take a look.
Today I'm at UCLA to ask students about blackface and this new phenomenon of woman face. Why is it socially acceptable to be transgender, but not transracial? Let's go find out. I want to show you a couple pictures of prominent figures rocking blackface and get your reaction to it. Is that all right?
Very interesting. I did not. Okay.
This is Rachel Dolezal, who was a president of a chapter of NAACP, who identified as transracial. She said that she was born in the wrong body and that she identified as black. This is Ted Danson at the Friars Club Roast in New York City. This is Sarah Silverman in blackface on her TV show. What do you...
Yeah, I remember I noticed there's a lot of leftists who have a history of blackface and they don't seem to be held accountable for it. Funny that, I guess, depending on what side of the political spectrum you fall on, you're allowed to get away with certain things. It doesn't apply to, leftists when it comes to cancel culture and cancelling them for their past.
I'm gonna read on TV about white people getting deducted by aliens, sticking all kind of hell up their butt. And that's a damn thing.
What do you think of when you see these images?
It's not good. It's really bad.
Do you think people can identify as a certain race?
Oh, and by the way, when Ted Danson had that, blackface image, Whoopi Goldberg was in the audience laughing her head off, just so you're aware.
Race?
No, I do not believe you can identify as a certain race.
So do you think identifying as a different race is offensive?
This is a very good question. I think, I don't know.
You can't become something that is recognized off of skin color if you weren't that skin color your whole life.
Right, because it's biological. Mm-hmm. Do you think that people who claim transracial are making a mockery of real black people?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about woman face. Have you guys heard the term woman face?
No.
Have you heard this term? So this is men who identify as women and then they benefit socially and financially from many cases. Do you guys know Dylan Mulvaney?
No.
So he transitioned, and after he transitioned to a woman, he has millions of dollars in brand deals. You have Leah Thomas, who has William Thomas, ranked very low on the swimmer scoreboards. After transitioning, was #1 in the country.
It's bullshit to me that you reap benefits for something you're not.
I think.
Yeah, Rachel Dolezal, she was heavily criticised for taking a place at a university that, an historically black university. She took a place there and, over a black person because she put black on the application. She could have put white and still gotten into that university, but she decided to put black. So she was literally taking a spot from a black person. And this is why we speak out about trans-identified athletes. Men who identify as women taking the spot of a female athlete, taking positions that they would not have been able to achieve. And it's been proven that they failed to achieve these positions when they were competing with men. And they come over into women's sports and they're dominating. They're #1. So when people speak up about that, we're called transphobic. When we're highlighting that they're taking away spots, positions, and jobs even from women, modeling jobs, scholarships from beauty pageants, and literally taking a position in sports, accolades, championships. But we're called, apparently that's a crime if we ban males from competing in women's sports so that women's sports can remain fair. Apparently that's a crime.
I think that is a completely different story. Being transgender is something where you can genuinely be born with different biological features or whatever, and that doesn't contribute to gender or like societal norms at all. I think those are two completely different things.
Is woman face offensive?
I don't think that's woman face. I think those are people who were born in the wrong bodies, who are becoming themselves.
At least when Rachel Dolezal identify as a black person, she wasn't necessarily, from what I saw, she wasn't mocking black people. She wasn't, living up to stereotypes and caricatures, of black people. I didn't see her do that. When she spoke like a normal person. When she dressed a certain way, she dressed as a normal person. She put braids in her hair, yes, and she wore Afro kinky style wigs, but I didn't see her perpetuate stereotypes and basically mock black people in the way she behaved. Otherwise, people would have been took notice of that. She managed to get a job leading a chapter of the NAACP. So obviously she must have been behaving in a normal manner. But yet Dylan Mulvaney can go around acting like a bimbo, acting like, when we go hiking, apparently we wear heels when we go hiking. We know nothing about sports. We know nothing about March Madness. Acting like an airhead, basically acting out caricatures of things that are used to mock women.
So if you can identify with a different gender, why can't you identify with a different race?
The biological side of it, because race has no biological connections whatsoever. It's purely based off of physical appearances.
I just asked you if it was biological. You said yes.
Is recognized off of skin color. If you weren't that skin color your whole life.
Right, because it's biological.
Or sex has biological backings, but gender is not. Gender is a spectrum.
Why is it so?
Gender is a lot more binary than race. That's just reality. When a baby is born, they're not assigned anything. The doctor declares what they are based on what they're born with or without. Very, very clear cut. Whereas race, that is actually more on a spectrum. I did my video recently on Cleopatra, and I had a lot of Egyptians commenting, and thank you for your lovely comments, your insightful, educational comments. I really appreciate it. And I got comments from Black Americans as well. Again, thank you for your comments, your educational comments, adding to the conversation. I appreciate that. But, when you go to Egypt, what race are they? We will come out with very different answers, depending on who you talk to. If you ask somebody, what race you are, you will get a different answer there, because there's all sorts of colours on the spectrum represented there. But, some people will consider themselves black, some people will consider themselves white, and there are only 4 races. And that's very limiting, isn't it? When you think about the different shades that we come in, to the fact that there's only 4 races. And apparently they keep extending the number of races, because really, it doesn't represent, we don't all fit into those boxes. If you go to a Latino person, ask them what race they are, you'll get different answers. And a lot of it is subjective, or depending on how you interpret race. If you have 2 people who are mixed races, and they get together and have babies, what race are those babies? So race is a lot more fluid, or more on a spectrum than gender or sex. And sex and gender, people argue they're different things, whatever. At the end of the day, gender usually is based on one's genitalia. So I don't know where this idea came from. Again, it's what's been put out there to justify people identifying as different genders.
Socially acceptable to be transgender, but it's not socially acceptable to be transracial.
I think that's they're very different things. I think that I don't know how to phrase this in a way, but I would say is.
I wouldn't say I'm educated enough to have the proper definition of separating the two.
But what about how Rachel Dolezal, she said that she was born in the wrong body, that she really is black. Why is that any different than being born in the wrong body and being a woman or a man?
I don't know how to explain it, but I know that it is.
Because you've been told that it is. That's why. The media has told you. We're literally told that one is sacred. We're not allowed to criticize it. I believe it's a cult. It's become a cult now. And you've been told that. But when it comes to other categories, we see them for what they are. We see the mockery behind it. We see the ridiculousness behind it. But at least Rachel Dolezal helped black people, you could argue, because she was a leader of the NAACP. She did things, she was involved in initiatives to help black people in her community. So if anything, why is she demonized, but someone like Dylan Mulvaney is rewarded with millions upon millions of dollars? One had their livelihood stripped from them, and the other is made a millionaire for mockery.
I feel like people, they have the freedom to do what they want.
Is that an endorsement of transracialism?
Kind of got me, huh?
Do you see the hypocrisy here?
I do see the hypocrisy, but I don't think the hypocrisy is like, I'm not trying, how do I phrase this?
Maybe it's like, if I want to be a dragon, I can just be a dragon or something.
Why is it?
You laugh at that, but that is actually happening. There are people who we now call trans species. And the question is, where does it stop? If you're going to, you can laugh at people who identify as a different race or dismiss it, but that is going to become a reality because the hypocrisy cannot continue forever. At some point, people are going to catch on and be like, wait a minute, if you can do this, this should be acceptable. And you're going to get people pushing the boundaries more and more, whether you like it or not. She admitted it was hypocritical, but she doesn't want to be accused of being transphobic. So she's going to ignore the fact that it's hypocritical, which is what people have been conditioned to do.
I have fantasies about having a car wreck and becoming paraplegic from a car wreck.
Perhaps most shockingly of all, London-born Chloe is on a quest to find a surgeon willing to operate in order to paralyse her legs forever.
I did find a surgeon in another country who would be prepared to do femoral and sciatic nerve transections to paralyze my legs. It would be at least $25,000. I don't have the money to do it. That's basically the only reason that I've not yet had surgery.
Chloe Jennings Wyatt spends her days confined to a wheelchair. It's tough to get around, and she struggles with living in a world that isn't built for the disabled. However, Chloe is actually able to walk perfectly and chooses to live her life like a paraplegic due to a rare psychological disorder called BIID. Despite wishing she was paralysed, Chloe still takes part in extreme sports like skiing. BIID has led Chloe, a Cambridge University educated research scientist, to harm herself in a bid to become paraplegic for real.
So should she be given surgery to correct a mental disorder, BIID? Should she have a surgeon take her money and paralyze her legs? Should she be given that to correct the mental disorder? Because last time I checked, that's how we're dealing with things now. We give them surgery and the doctors can make a hell of a lot of money. Is she making a mockery out of people who have disabilities? She does extreme sports on the one hand, but on the other hand, she's saying that she wants to be disabled. She wants to be confined to a wheelchair, that she's willing to find a surgeon who will enable her to do that. So where does it stop? Where do we draw the line? Do we deal with the mental disorder, BIID, or do we just give her the surgery so she won't be, feel like taking her life? Should we tell, these surgeons that they have to perform the surgery or she's going to want to take her life? Do we do that when it comes to this condition? It's going to get more and more out of hand. We've now opened the floodgates as far as I'm concerned. And, I'm here to see the hypocrisy. I'm here to see it all implode. Because at some point, more and more people are going to speak out when their rights are infringed upon. If she pays to disable her body, is she now going to claim certain benefits, certain resources that go to people who are disabled because they were either born with these conditions or they were in an accident? They didn't choose to be in the position they're in. And we've got someone who's choosing to be in that situation or claiming that they identify as somebody in this situation, even though they can do extreme sports and do all these wonderful things, and may end up claiming resources.
It's socially acceptable for people to identify as a different gender, but it's not socially acceptable for people to identify as a different race.
Well, I don't know. That's a great question.
I hear a lot of people on this campus today that say the black face is wrong, but the woman face is totally acceptable. Why is there a double standard for race and gender?
That I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Very honest answer, and I like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather people just answer honestly rather than try and do this mental gymnastics to justify the hypocrisy.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, you guys, that is a wrap here at UCLA. Definitely.
Yep, there you go. And I would like people to get to the point where they can just call out the nonsense rather than being afraid of being labelled. That's why they put labels on people. Because they want to condition people to accept lunacy, to accept what doesn't make sense. So we can acknowledge biology when it comes to race and say, well, no, you're born black, you can't decide you're white, and vice versa. But when it comes to sex now, that has been made the holy grail. We're not allowed to touch that. Why is that? So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.